You. So I know this is a little late. I know the news broke about a week ago, but I really wanted to say something because Ozzy Osbourne was a hero for me. I grew up in a pretty conservative Episcopalian Protestant town, and really my first experience with things that were outside the realm of a proper education and Christianity was Dungeons and Dragons and reading fantasy when I was growing up, like Lord of the Rings. And I started hanging out with some older friends towards the beginning of high school, and they were listening to old school heavy rock and metal, and so that really imprinted on my brain. One, because I liked impressing them and knowing more about the music that they were all listening to, but two, because I really enjoy the spirit and rebellion of rock. And that was how I came upon Ozzy Osbourne. Was mainly when I was listening to it, he was already on to his solo career, but I listened to Black Sabbath, and because of listening to his music and his band's music, that helped me spread out into bands that I still enjoy, like well, not that I don't enjoy Black Sabbath, but like Slipknot, Mudvayne, Metallica, bands like that, Tool, that I still listen to. And so combined with this sort of like expansive spirit of rock and my penchant, my enjoyment of things mystical, from doing things like reading fantasy and sci-fi, playing video games, which were just beginning to pop off in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and getting into the idea of things that weren't necessarily Christian or the proper education that we were getting in school. The internet was starting to light up, and we were all learning a lot of things. And I think that, considering my parents were pretty Christian and the upbringing I had was pretty religious, I, in rebellion, really branched out into not just metal and not just the rebellious spirit of the time, but also, I guess you could say, the occult. And if you look at a lot of those albums from Black Sabbath and some of the album art and stuff, and you look at the way that Ozzy dressed, he references the occult a lot. And when I say occult, I don't necessarily mean that he himself was a Satan worshiper. Some people believe he is. He was called the Prince of Darkness. But I don't think that Ozzy referred to infernal forces in the way that religion does. One of my favorite songs of his was a song called Mr. Crowley, which is all about Aleister Crowley, who is a controversial mystic from, I believe, the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he was prolific in his proliferation of occult information, occult texts. He was part of various occult groups. And I admit, like, I was attracted to these things as a youth, and so I really looked into them. I mean, the internet was available, and so it was a simple Google search away to see what these guys were all about and what these belief systems were all about, and it was all there. It's all there in PDFs. It still is. Go look at a PDF of this stuff. It's all there, and it's all easy to access. So one of the things that I took from studying magic and studying synchronicities and studying even the idea of like fallen angels, which is to say beings who strive to act outside of the will of God. Absorbing all of these things and moving forward, when I was in my mid-20s and I met my Reiki practitioner, I even with these proclivities, even with these experiences of like listening to this music and everything like that, when I first met him, and I was a little drunk and we were at a bar, and I told him, opened up, because he was that kind of guy, about some of the experiences I had, mystical experiences, transcendental experiences, and the idea that I thought maybe I could heal things with my hands. like I was taught that Jesus does. He immediately brought up, hey man, I teach Reiki and you sound like you're a great candidate, so how about you learn? And so we did. And when I first met him, he was open with me because I had revealed to him that I had come from a Christian background, and he's basically like a Celt. Like we in the church would call him probably a pagan, and he believed in mythological symbology and metaphor that I was unfamiliar with. And so I learned through him, and I was open to it, and I believe that's probably one of the reasons that kept me returning to him for tutelage and for learning, because I was already open to other ways of thinking, even other spiritual ways of thinking, because of metal, because of listening to Ozzy Osbourne, and the idea that my master taught me, and even the idea of like the Prince of Darkness and the Church of Satan, and the idea of magic, a core belief of all of these things is the idea of creating, choosing, and executing your own fate. It's piggybacked off of the religious idea that God knows everything. And so even though in the religious context we have free will, it's not truly free because it's always within the context of God's plan. We can never really do anything that's outside of God's plan because he exists in an order of magnitude superior to ours in all ways, shapes, and forms. And it can often feel like that when we are at a place of employment that we feel like we can't progress through, or we're stuck in a financial situation that many powers seem like they are greater than ours and we are unable to forward our momentum. There's health problems that we can have where viruses or deteriorating bodies may seem more powerful than we are, and that we are in fact slaves to fate, and we can only do the best we can within our certain amount of time allotted. And there's a certain amount of truth to that. But I think that something Reiki offers, and something that these mystical practices have offered throughout time as well. Remember, occult and paganism is just another way of saying not the current religion. And these practices have been going on since Egyptian time for thousands of years, and probably before, even before the Ice Age, people had beliefs, I think that nestled within all of these is this idea of self-determination, and that you are the author of your reality and the author of your destiny, and that fate can be there to impose upon you. Fate can be imposed upon you, but through the gathering of your own energies and your own power, you can break free of the destiny laid before you by outside forces or cultural forces and create your own path. And I think that that's really what any good spiritual practice should be able to teach and should be able to do for you. And I hope that in my Reiki practice and in listening to what I say on these videos or my practice in person, that the people I'm teaching on here can open up to that and new realms of that, new realms of self-determination, and use these ideas, what I'm talking about, to empower themselves, to overcome the specters of tiredness and find new realms of energy for creating and maintaining your own lives. So yeah, that's what I hope this stuff can do for you. And I think that if you were to ask Ozzy Osbourne, he would say that one of the most important things about what he believed was rocking out in whatever way you can, in whatever way you want, so anyway, long live Ozzy, man. It was a great run. I hear they're gonna study his body and see, and probably make medical breakthroughs based on why he was so resilient against the torrent of abuse and pharmaceuticals that he ingested within his time on Earth. So even in his passing, he has further further gifts to give to the human race. So, you know, I hope that wherever he is in the ever after, he is doing very well. And you know, I wish all his family the best and everything. So thanks, guys. Have a good week.